All right, thanks for tuning in once again. It's Ishmael Sistrunk with the St. Louis American and STLamerican.com, here with our Rams Roundup correspondent, Palmer Alexander III. Palmer, Week 17, the St. Louis Rams were matched up against the defending champion, Seattle Seahawks. They'd beaten them earlier in the season at home, but we knew it was a situation. The Rams had already been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, and going into Seattle is already tough enough. And to little surprise, the Seahawks emerged victorious 20-6. The Rams offense looked pretty bad, didn't do much at all. What happened in this game? Why were the Rams unable to duplicate the success that they had in St. Louis earlier in the season?
Well, I think for starters, the Seahawks were, they wasn't playing their best football too at the time when the Rams beat them. And they got a few of those kinks worked out after that loss. I think when they lost to the Rams initially a few weeks ago, I think a lot of people were thinking that maybe the Seahawks are on the decline like the San Francisco 49ers are. But, they do have that championship medal about themselves, and it showed. I mean, they pretty much did whatever they wanted to on defense, and even with the Rams up 6-0, you never felt comfortable because they just didn't allow the Rams to do anything. They didn't allow them to run the football. The Rams only averaged 2 yards per carry, took the run game completely away, and dared the Rams to throw the ball. They just wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, definitely. The Rams' offense was, especially the running attack, like you said, was specifically bad. I think it was like 46 yards or 42 yards. Let me pull that up here. Trey Mason, 11 carries for 28 yards. The team as a whole, 19 carries for 42 yards, which the Seattle defense, they are tough. They are the reason, really, that team won the Super Bowl last season. So I guess it's not a surprise, but it's still a disappointment because we've seen Trey Mason and that running back crew put together some pretty good outings toward the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, and also I just don't think, and I keep harping on this, is that there are some teams that you cannot run up the gut against, and the Seahawks are one of those types of teams. I mean, two of those teams are in your division. The Cardinals and the Seahawks, I mean, they completely stuffed the Rams trying to run up the middle. And it was as if that the Rams, on offense, they got plenty of speed on this team, but, you can't be that intimidated or that in awe of another team's defense where you don't even try to make an effort to get out on the perimeter and try to be able to create some things. And that's the problem with the Rams overall, is just, learning how to utilize what you do have. It's not like this is the 2010 Rams or 2011 Rams. They have more talent. They just want to utilize the team speed that they have.
Now, what did you think about Sean Hill's performance? He went, when you look at it on the surface, it's not that bad. 26 for 37, 243 yards. Did not have a touchdown, which is a problem, and threw 2 costly interceptions. But it appears, other than the lack of touchdowns, if you just look at the attempts and the completions, it doesn't seem like he had a bad game. Why was he unable to drive them down the field and actually get into the end zone?
Yeah, some tough luck for Sean Hill, and the one interception, I mean, that's Lance Kendrick's fault 100% of the way. I mean, you got to be able to catch the ball, secure the ball. I mean, we're talking about this again with Lance Kendrick. This is nothing new. That was a pivotal turnover because that pretty much iced the football contest. The other interception, I mean, I don't. You have to tip your cap to Jordan Hill of the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, Sean Hill was trying to get rid of the football, and the guy made a better play. You have to tip your cap to him. The Rams did have an opportunity to score, punch it in, but Benny Cunningham fumbles on the goal line. So some of it is not all of Sean Hill's fault, but then again, he's a journeyman quarterback. He's a veteran. He's been in his league, and with the exception of the interception to Lance Kendrick, that one to Jordan Hill, you really can't blame him for it.
Yeah, that was a crazy play. The fact that you're just trying to chuck it into the ground and the guy dives. Now I do think that you can just throw it straight down instead of even giving him that opportunity. But we see quarterbacks do that all the time, where you just throw it at the feet of the lineman. And I guess that's the rule. You have to be throwing it near somebody. So I guess he's throwing it at the foot of the lineman for that reason. If you just throw it on the ground, it may be intentional grounding. So just a heck of a play, like you said. What about the Rams defense? I mean, you give up 20 points to defending champions, you should have a chance to win that game. That's a reasonable outing by your defense. But how do you rate them overall in this game?
Listen, I thought the defense played well. I mean, there was a few times where they let Russell Wilson get away with that when the pocket collapsed. But I mean, again, he didn't run for over 100 yards. I mean, they was able to get 3 sacks on him. They forced 3 fumbles. They held this team scoreless going into the third quarter, and it was just mistakes made on the other side of the ball. So the defense did the job. They held as long as they could, with the exception of Janoris Jenkins with his NFL impersonation of Shaqtin' a fool on defense. I mean, you take that play away. I mean, the defense was almost perfect.
Yeah, it's just a shame that the offense and defense can't really get it together on the same week. We saw it a few times. They had a couple blowout victories, but overall, a very, very inconsistent season. And once again, we're here at the end of the season talking about a team this year with 6 wins. The last 2 years before that, it was 7 wins. Why is this team unable to get over the hump? We see them as a middle-of-the-road team, as a bad to average team at best. 6 wins, 7 wins. Why can't they get over the hump to be, either at least 500 or to get over the 500 into the playoffs? And what really do the Rams need to concentrate on in the offseason so that we're not sitting here again next season saying, well, we got 6 wins, we got 7 wins, whoop-de-whoop.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams, first of all, one of the things they got to do better is when they sign free agents, I mean, they can't afford to miss anymore. They talk about the Rams can't afford to have bad draft, when they can't have bad signings in free agency. Scott Wells signing didn't work out too well. The Jake Long signing didn't work out, too well. The idea of bringing in, Case Keenum, obviously he didn't, last on this team long because he ended up, going down and finishing the season with the Houston Texans. The Rams got to do a better job of evaluating free agent talent. This bromance, Ishmael, with Sam Bradford could very well be the death veil for the Les Snead and Jeff Fisher franchise. I just don't understand, Ishmael. What is the bromance about? You know what I'm saying? The guy got 58 career touchdowns, 59 career turnovers. There isn't one signature play that you remember about Sam Bradford during his time here. So, again, you're saying, why risk it? Because they do have talent. I mean, you look at Aaron Donald and T.J. McDonald. I mean, they got some pieces. But they got to do something. They have to do a better job of free agency. They have to have a better plan offensively, too, because what's the purpose of having Greg Williams in this attacking-style defense? You got a Pro Bowl punter and Johnny Hacker. You got a schizophrenic place kicker. Okay, you got at least 2 of those 3 things you feel comfortable about. It's the offense. That's why this team stays where it is, because you cannot win in the NFL if you cannot score, or at least attempt to try to score, because they're not.
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Actually, I wrote about the quarterback situation for the column this week. But I think the answer is simple. You got to get a quarterback. And with respects to Austin Davis and Sean Hill, they're backups, like you said. They're guys who are expected to come in, fill in for a game or fill in for a half. They're not really long-range guys. So, they get an A for effort this season, but they're really not the guys that you want to go under. And I don't think Sam Bradford is either. And I have nothing against him personally, but Sam Bradford, like I talked about the records earlier, Sam Bradford is a guy where he's going to get you average at best. And just because he was the #1 overall pick doesn't mean that he's going to play up to that potential. We've seen Bradford, when he's been healthy, he's had times where he's played well, but they've still finished what, 500 or right under 500. So if his ceiling is average, you need to go get a new quarterback. And I think that needs to happen sooner than later. There's not a whole lot. I mean, it's not the offseason yet, but it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of big, high-quality free agent quarterbacks. There may be some guys available for trade, like Jay Cutler, but the Rams need to figure out something sooner than later. If they're going to draft a quarterback, I don't know if you turn the keys over to a rookie, especially with this rookie class, but you got to find a stopgap. I don't think you go with Bradford just because there aren't more attractive free agents. I think you have to sever that. You got to get over that bromance. You got to break it up, break it off clean, and find somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, like you, the skill, you see the talent there. But I think that I think he's a shell-shock quarterback. He's taken so many hits because he has played behind a less than stellar offensive line. Look at these teams that are going to the playoffs. All of these teams have good to great offensive lines. I mean, we saw that in the Dallas game. I mean, they giving Tony Romo all the time the world to throw, big running lanes for DeMarco Murray. All of these teams that are successful, they have great lines up front. I think even if the Rams did solidify the offensive line, I just don't have the confidence in Sam Bradford to be able to get this team to the next level. Because there are some things that we saw even, with Austin Davis during that brief period. You say this is what you want your quarterback to be able to do, be able to improvise when the play is breaking down, not fold up and pull the covers over your head like you saw a spider. So you gotta you gotta have that. That's very important for this team. And I think Ishmael, when they start looking at this team and happen to go forward, they got to do something at center, like I mentioned before, right guard and that right tackle. I don't think you can go into a season with Sam Bradford or anybody else, with Joe Barksdale or Davin Joseph or Scott Wells. All three of those guys are quarterback killers waiting to happen. I mean, and Roger Saffold just had surgery on the shoulder. Well, he's scheduled for surgery on January the 7th. So, again, that was his main issue last year, the shoulder. And the shoulder's fine, but now he's getting surgery on the shoulder. So there are a lot of issues on that line. If they don't get it straight, it don't matter who they got playing quarterback.
So let's play fantasy coach for a second. Just looking at the environment as it is today, who would you like to see the Rams go and get, whether it's in the draft, whether it's in the trade, or whether it's via free agency? What are some names that are floating around in the Palmer mind here?
I mean, one guy, I've heard Jay Cutler name, and I say hell no. All the way hell no. The jury's still out to me. I mean, I know a lot of people get upset with me when I say no to Jameis Winston. I mean, what's not to like about him, but he carries a lot of baggage. The Rams have enough baggage as it is. So bringing him in, it wouldn't be a good idea. The quarterbacks in the draft is looking paper thin. I do like Vernon Jones Jr. out of Eastern Washington. Very athletic quarterback, throws the ball down the field pretty well. But I will be right up on some more quarterbacks in the upcoming future. But nobody, Ishmael, right now stands out to me like this is the guy. I think the Rams missed out last year in the draft. There were plenty of quarterbacks they could have chosen within those first to third rounds, and then they traded their fourth and I think sixth round for the upcoming draft because they got Mark Barron in that trade with Tampa. So the pickings for the Rams are slim at quarterback, and right now I really don't like what they got out there. So now I'm saying, hey, rebuild that line.
Yeah, and my only fear about that is that, that the front office will look at that and say, okay, well, we need to keep Sam Bradford. We need to give him another chance. And again, it's nothing personal against him. I just don't think he's going to lead this team to a winning record. He's not going to lead them to the playoffs. But I agree, the pickings are slim. I think if they're going to acquire somebody, they may have to do it with a trade, or they're going to have to wait until we start to see cap casualties. It seems like every offseason there's always a guy who you wouldn't necessarily expect to be cut that gets cut. It's a money game. The NFL is different than the NBA, and where the contracts aren't guaranteed. So if you don't take a pay cut or they can't, renegotiate, that just cuts you. So I think the Rams are going to have to do something. Back like when the Rams got Trent Green, he ended up getting hurt, but they acquired him. Was he a free agent or did they trade for him?
He was signed as a free agent.
Yeah, but they need to go out and get a Trent Green caliber player where he's not necessarily, the do-all, be-all, but a quality guy. So they may need to acquire him via trade. They may need to draft somebody. Well, they definitely need to draft somebody, but I think they're going to need to acquire a veteran, whether it's free agent or trade.
Yeah, and the other thing is, too, you think about the offensive system and whether or not the offensive system is going to stay the same. Fisher, I think that's one of the reasons why he is stuck with Sam Bradford, because he feels that, okay, listen, he's been in this offense for so many years. We don't have to change a lot of things. And I understand that. That makes perfect sense. It's just that the health in Sam Bradford, health hasn't ever matched up to what, what they envision, for them to happen. So, I'm thinking, and we don't know yet, but if they do make changes on the coaching staff, if they decide to make a change offensive coordinator, that may also kind of give you an idea who they're looking at, come the draft. If they decide to let Schottenheimer go and maybe entertain a Ray Sherman or maybe even a Mike Shanahan, who's very close with Jeff Fisher, then that might change the way that this team drafts. But again, it may change the offensive philosophy of this team. And basically, Ishmael, we don't even know what their philosophy is because they haven't been able to do run or pass well at all this season.
Yeah, and you know who the guy who I always want, which is not going to happen, but I'm going to say it anyway, try to speak it into reality. I've always, as a Mizzou guy, want to see them get Chase Daniel. He's a backup at Kansas City, just won a game. I'd like to see Chase Daniel go and make it happen, Rams. Don't think it will, but it would be interesting. He hasn't really had much starting experience whatsoever. But whenever he's got a chance, when he was in New Orleans and when he was in Kansas City, he hasn't looked too bad.
Hey, listen, I am 1,000% on board with you on that. 1,000% on board. You was reading my mind. I'm just going to throw his name out there. And listen, if of all the guys, as far as like backups throughout the league, I would really like to see the Rams. I mean, I would love in a perfect world, I would love to see the Rams acquire him because I think Chase Daniels is such a competitor. And for him to even last this long, and look at the money they pay him in Kansas City, I think they pay him like $3 million a year. I mean, that's some good money to be paying a backup quarterback. So that just lets you know, how valuable he is, for Andy Reid for them to pony up that kind of money for him. And in the ideal situation in St. Louis, I think he will provide the type of competition that may push Sam Bradford, that could push Sam Bradford. You look at Chase Daniel pedigree, what he did at Mizzou. You look at being under the tutelage of Sean Payne and Drew Brees, and now being with a guy like Andy Reid. I think he'd be a great addition if that was to happen. So I'm with you on that, man, all the way.
Now you said he's making about $3 million.
Yes.
All right. I used to play a little quarterback back in my day, so I might have to go out there to Rams Park, brother, try to get that backup. I don't need to be the starter, but they can make me the backup. They can make me the third stringer, trying to get a little bit of that Chase Daniel money.
Hey, so when I look at the Mizzou highlight reel for 2007, you're going to be throwing passes to Jeremy Maclin instead of Daniel, right?
There you go. There you go. We're going to get that together. We're going to make some calls. So, no, back to the Rams, but what else do the Rams need to focus on? You said offensive line, talked about quarterback. What else do they need to focus on, or do you think they will focus on this offseason?
They have to really be committed to it. I mean, offense is going to be that thing. I'm going to keep pushing. Everybody keep pushing. The defense is good. The defense is good, and they really showed how good they can be. They need a lead. And they need more than just a 6-0 lead going to the third quarter. You got one of the most explosive players they drafted, Tavon Austin. I mean, running him in between the tackles against the Seahawks, that's asinine. You have to come up with a little bit more creativity. You don't want to call a guy a bust yet. he has bust-like numbers, but they're not utilizing him. If they were, then we have a different narrative. So, outside of that too on defense, I think that Marcus Roberson, even though he had the interception in that game against Seattle, we're hoping that he's take that next step and maybe he can be able to start to push Janoris Jenkins. Janoris, you have to really, really understand what he's trying to do on the defensive side of the ball. He's trying to create plays. He's trying to create that next pick six, but he just has to understand the job, do his job, because too many times this season, he's shacking a fool on defense as usual, and allowing the big play. And like you always say, when the Rams allow plays like that, you always know something bad is getting ready to happen next, and then they end up losing the football game. Same thing like the Dallas game. So moving forward, I'm just thinking that if they get that situation solidified with the secondary with Janoris Jenkins, who was clearly a weak link, I think this team is definitely a playoff caliber team.
Well, here's my thoughts on Janoris. I like Janoris Jenkins. He's a risk taker, which sometimes that burns him and sometimes it pays off. The thing I think with Jenkins is because the Rams offense really doesn't score a lot, he's trying to create scoring opportunities. So that's when he gets caught up looking in the backfield and loses his man, or when he tries to make a jump on the ball and the quarterback doesn't throw it and leaves his man wide open. I think if the Rams were able to score points, I think Janoris Jenkins would be much more effective. He wouldn't be pressing so much to try to get that pick six and things like that. So I think a healthier Rams offense, and I mean healthy in the sense of able to score more points, makes Janoris Jenkins a better player. That's just in my opinion. I like him. I think you may have to give him more safety help so he can be that type of aggressive player. But I'm not going to get mad at a guy who's aggressive, and a lot of his mistakes are made out of him being aggressive, and I'm okay with that, but you, as a defensive coordinator, you have to realize that you have that type of player, and you have to start scheming and figuring out ways to help him out so he can be aggressive. You got to turn him loose. I think that makes the Rams a better team.
If he was turning more loose, then he wouldn't be shacking the full, Ishmael. I mean, you're getting out jumped by Ridley Cooper in the Eagles game. Always looking to point the finger at McLeod, like why you didn't help over the top. I mean, Jeff Fisher trusts Janoris enough to leave him out there on the island. Jeff Fisher was a little pissed off about that too, because he's saying, I don't know what was he thinking about. I mean, Fisher's only going to cover for his guys for so long. But, I mean, this is just kind of a reoccurring thing with him. It's feast or famine, but it's been more famine than it's been feast with him. And also, he's a penalty magnet. He never gets his head around on the football, and some of those calls against him this year were undeserved, but he just has that reputation for being one of those guys that's often gets flagged for pass interference. And like I say, if the feast or famine was near 50-50, I'm with you. But I think the famine is outweighing the feast, this season when it comes to Janoris.
Gotcha. Point made. So what else? Any last thoughts before we wrap up? It's been a long season. 17 weeks. Playoffs are coming up. The Rams are on the outside looking in, as has been the case now for 10 years, I believe. But we talked about what they need to do to get back to the playoffs. NFC West, we did see Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh's left. Was ousted in San Francisco, is going to the University of Michigan. Do you think that team will get stronger after he leaves, or do you think that will help and they'll, kind of fall to the bottom and the Rams will be able to, get a notch up on that ladder in the NFC West?
I kind of see the 49ers kind of like in limbo. I think that the players all love playing for Jim Harbaugh. They love playing for him. You saw the effort that they put out for him on a week-in and week-out basis. It's kind of funny, they threw their offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, on the bus a few times throughout the season, and Vernon Davis was unhappy. It was just a whole lot of things going on. But as a coach and coaching these men, That's going to be a huge void to fill. So I think the 49ers may end up falling a little bit, towards the pack. And right now it seems like the Arizona Cardinals and Seattle Seahawks are trading who's going to be winning the NFC West. And hopefully the Rams can be able to jump up in that conversation as well as the other teams in the NFC West.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It always seems like the Cardinals and the Niners, play hopscotch a little bit. One year, one of them is up, maybe unexpected. The next year, the other one's down, and then the next year, vice versa. So it would be nice to see the Rams get into that mix. We know the NFC West, is a strong conference, and part of the reason that the Rams have not been able to get over that hump is because they have, three quality teams in the division. But at the same time, you're getting high draft picks every single season. You have to be able to make that pay off. And for me, I just think quarterback is the answer. You've upgraded the defense. We finally gotten, it was interesting, a weird year on the offense, but we finally seem to have gotten some decent wide receiver play. We saw several guys who have stood up. Brian Quick was really having a breakout year before he got hurt. And then we saw Stedman Bailey. We saw some other guys who have actually stepped up in his absence, Kenny Britt as well. So you would like to think that when Quick comes back next season that they're going to have a decent wide receiving squad. But for me, I think quarterback. I mean, the offensive line, like you mentioned, everything else you need to upgrade. But I think quarterback is really the reason. And we've seen teams who get a good quarterback and go from not being very good to being perennial playoff teams. Look at the Colts with Andrew Luck. They've been in the playoffs, pretty much every season now. So I think the Rams have to identify they have to get a good quarterback before they're going to make it to the playoffs.
And on top of that, looking at their schedule for the 2015 season, the Rams finally caught a break for the first time and God knows how long. So they're going to be facing a lot of teams that are kind of in that middle of the rung pack. I mean, they end up facing the Bears next season. They got to see Washington again. So, they got to play Pittsburgh. They got to play Cleveland. So, they got some games already on the schedule, and they have to start making some hay now. I mean, they finally got, I think, a gift from the schedule makers. They've been playing a difficult schedule these last couple of seasons, and now there's really no excuse. I mean, the clock on Jeff Fisher and Les Snead has begun. And if they come up short, they need to go, period.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they'll be fine going into next season, but I think if there's no playoffs next season, you're probably going to see them gone. So hopefully they'll be able to get together. Again, Jeff Fisher hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been great. He's just been a middle of the pack, and that's was some of the criticism when he was hired is that, hey, this is a 500 coach who had a few good seasons, but hopefully they'll be able to take that step. Hate to keep beating the same horn, but I think a quarterback is going to be needed. So with that said, that is this season, the 2014 season for the St. Louis Rams. Again, they finished 6-10. They showed some glimpses of greatness. They also showed some pretty bad habits reverting to the losing teams of old. So hopefully we'll be able to get that together. We will be coming back and having some Rams roundups throughout the offseason as we approach the draft, as we get any type of acquisitions and things like that. So make sure you stay tuned here to us at the St. Louis American and STLamerican.com and here on YouTube because we will be bringing that information. Palmer, any last words as we wind up here?
Hey, listen, it was a good season, but you know what? Even though it's officially over, it has really just begun. So I'm excited about this off season, Ishmael. There's going to be a lot of things going moving around the stadium situation. We're going to be hitting you back up for the Roundup. We're going to talk some more about that in the upcoming weeks. And other than that, I want to just thank everybody for just hanging out with us all season long, and thanks for the support through everything we've been through. And just hang on. We got bigger and better stuff coming along the way.
All right, so once again, I'm Ishmael Sistrunk from the St. Louis American and STLAmerican.com, here with Palmer Alexander, and this winds up our Rams Roundup. See you next year. Happy New Year.